Welcome to Big Mouth Bassin with Tom Zenanko, the fishing video that gives you a tackle box full of common sense, easy to remember and use tips and secrets to start putting more bass in your boat. Your host is Tom Zenanko. Tom says he really doesn't remember the first time he picked up a fishing rod. He just knows it was before he could walk. His father loves fishing, so Tom naturally caught the bug. And before long, he was obsessed with fishing. By the time he was 18, Tom was fishing in tournaments. And by 20, much to the concern of his family, he called himself a professional. For 12 years, Tom Zenanko's been one of the country's leading authorities on largemouth bass. His book, Big Mouth Bassin, is a bestseller on the subject.
Fishing is really quite simple and very basic if you understand a few of the common sense principles of fishing, and those are the things that I've been working on all my life. And that's one of the things that I feel that I bring to the sport. A common man's viewpoint of fishing, because fishing is a sport that everybody of all ages can enjoy.
Hi, and welcome to Big Mouth Bassin. This video is packed with fishing tips and secrets to help you catch hog bass like this one. We've organized this video so it's easy to follow the ideas and to remember them. You know, a fishing tip is no good, and it will not catch you a single bass if you forget about it when you get on the water. We'll cover bass tackle and lures, and those special places that bass love to hide, and how to get them out of there. We'll look at bass baits and how to use them and when. After reviewing bass boat features, we'll be going to a special bass school for some advanced bassin. We've made this a fast-paced video, but that's one of the reasons why they invented freeze frame and reverse. Now, I suggest that you get a chance to sit down and watch the entire video through. Then, if you have any questions, play it back and study the individual segments. Let's get started by looking at Mr. Bass himself. The largemouth bass, without a doubt, it is one of the most sought-after game fish in North America, and rightly so. The largemouth bass is known for its powerful leaping jumps, its bone-jarring strikes, and I tell you, there's nothing more enjoyable than hanging on to the end of a rod with a largemouth bass on the other. The largemouth bass is a member of the panfish family, like the sunfish and the crappie. The bass loves to hang around cover or objects. It's very object-orientated. So bass anglers who are looking to catch bass oftentimes find them hanging around weeds and docks. Bass love to hang around cover. Largemouth bass, it is without a doubt one of the most enjoyable game fish in all of North America. Bass will eat almost anything, or more accurately for some fishermen, almost anything except for what's at the end of their line. There are many different kinds of bass baits. Here are a few of the best ones, and when and how to use them.
There's more than one way to catch a bass, and if you can select the right kind of lure to the right kind of conditions, I guarantee you're going to catch a lot more fish this season. Well, first off, a lot of people are confused about how to select the right kind of lures. Well, there are only three major categories you can get. First, you have the topwater baits, the ones designed to run right up near the surface, like the spoon, for example. Then you have the family of subsurface baits, like the spinnerbait, or the ever-popular crankbait. These are very, very effective subsurface baits to run from, say, 2 to 5 or 6 foot down. But if you want to bounce your baits along the bottom, nothing could be better than a jig or a small plastic worm like you see here. By selecting the right kind of bait to the right kind of conditions, you'll definitely start catching more fish this year. Make sure you give it a try. If you want to start catching more bass this season, I've got a great idea for you. Try using a lure called a crankbait. A few years ago, many of you probably referred to this bait as a plug. But no matter what you call it, it's one great lure for catching largemouth bass. Now, it's very critical that you understand which type of crankbait to use for the right kind of condition, because there's a lot of different types of crankbaits out there. Let me show you a few. Now, some crankbaits have a very flat nose on them, so they're designed to wiggle just below the surface. Other crankbaits have a little bit larger lip on them. Now, that'll make the bait wobble back and forth and dive a little bit deeper. And of course, others still have much larger lips, and these are deep diving baits designed to work right tight next to the bottom. There is no doubt about the fact that crankbaits are one of the most productive baits for largemouth bass. I hope you give them a try this season. There, she's looking good now. Boy, I'll bite on that one. You know, before you can start catching bass on an artificial plug or a crankbait like this, it's very critical that you check it to make sure it's running properly in the water. If you find it rolling to one side or the other as you retrieve it, the bass will just swim the other way. So you got to make sure it's always running true. This is what we call tuning a crankbait. The way you tune a crankbait is very simply, if the bait is rolling to the right, you grab a hold of the eye of the lure and turn it a little bit to the right. If it's turning to the left, turn it to the left. A little bit of adjustment, cast it out, check it again, and if the bait is running true, you're going to start catching more bass. Crankbaits, tuned properly, will definitely mean some fast action for you this year. If you had to corner me and say, Tom, what lure would you use for catching a big bass? There's no doubt about the fact that I'd be selecting a plastic worm. One of these fakey-looking night crawlers really catches some big fish. There's a lot of different ways you can rig a plastic worm, either with a plain jig hook, on a weedless type hook like you see here, but my favorite way is to rig them up what we call Texas style. We have a special cone-shaped sinker threaded onto the line. You take your hook and you insert it into the end of the worm, about 1/2 inch. Then you pull it back out of the worm, thread it up the hook, and turn the plastic worm around and over the top of the keeper like this. Then you want to bury the hook just into the plastic worm. This way here, the worm is totally weedless and ready for that hog bass of a lifetime. I'm using one of the most effective baits you could ever use for bass fishing, and it's called a spinnerbait. Now, although it doesn't look like anything a bass might see, because it really doesn't look like a minnow or anything, it has all the flash and sex appeal to drive bass crazy. Now, basically, there are two different types of spinnerbaits. The tandem or two-bladed spinnerbait, which is designed for high-speed motion right below the surface. And then you have the single-spin spinnerbait. Now, these are designed primarily for dropping down into the pockets of weeds. Now, both of these types of spinnerbaits are very, very weedless, so you can fish them in the thickest cover. There is no doubt about the fact that spinnerbaits are one of the most versatile lures for catching bass. I hope you give them a try this season. Boy, this is some heavy cover out here. This is what I call super slot bass fishing. And you know, some of the biggest bass you'll ever find come from country that looks just like this. But being able to catch those big bass means you have to use the right kind of tackle. In other words, your line has to be at least 17 to 20-pound test. Spoons are ideal for this kind of fishing because they ride over the tops of this heavy vegetation. When the bass sees it, it busts up from underneath those pads, and boy, you better hang on. A piece of pork rind or some sort of plastic on the back of your spoon is a good idea to make it look a little bit more sexy to those big old bass. When you fish this bait, remember, keep your rod tip up at all times. And when you see that strike, reel down, set those hooks, and keep on a-cranking. Those big bass from this heavy cover really know how to fight. Super slot bass fishing, a lot of fun. Give it a try. Believe it or not, this is a frog. But not just an ordinary frog, a freeze-dried frog. Now, frogs have long been known as being one of the #1 bass-catching lures you could ever want to use. But this particular little way of fishing a frog is kind of unusual, and it works very well. What you do with this freeze-dried frog is add water to it. And in about 20 minutes, you have a frog that feels and looks as good as the real McCoy. Now, the way I like to fish my frogs is on the back of a weedless hook rig like you see here. Now I can fish my frogs with the thickest cover you could possibly imagine. Now, this particular setup here is considered one of the best big bass ways to go. And believe you me, I'm going to do a lot of fishing with this rig this year. All you got to do is add water. If you want to start scaring up more bass this season, I've got a great idea for you. Use a buzzer bait. A really strange-looking contraption, actually. It has a large propeller-like blade that spitter-spats its way across the surface. This particular lure is designed to be used in the thickest possible cover you might find. Oftentimes, that's the hot spot for those really big bass. The way you fish a buzzer bait is very simple. All you do is as soon as the bait hits the water, you want to get it moving towards you. Now, as you fish it, keep your rod tip up, because when Mr. Bass grabs it, you want to make sure you give him a second or two before you set the hook. But buzzer baits are definitely one of the most explosive ways to catch a bass this season. Give them a try. For the last 100 years or so, bass anglers have really been catching a lot of fish with the use of topwater baits. Names like the jitterbug and the hula popper are very popular indeed. Well, there's no doubt about the fact that topwater baits are very effective for catching largemouth bass, but there's definitely some do's and don'ts in how to fish them properly. Now, when you cast out a topwater bait, make sure you keep your rod tip up, because once you see that strike, you instinctively want to set the hooks too soon, and you'll miss that big old bass. What you want to do is keep the rod tip up. When you see the boil, it'll force you to reel down and then set the hook. It's a good idea to wait about 2 seconds before you set the hook. Largemouth bass love topwater baits, and it's one of the most explosive ways to catch a bass this season. Oh, yeah. Oh, jeez. Nice bass. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Yeah. Gotcha. Oh, boy. This is a real dandy fish. Hey, look where I had her hooked, too. Right to the roof of her mouth with my trailer hook. You see, this is a little trick that I learned for catching more of those sometimes short striking fish. Now, if you get a lot of those strikes and you keep missing them, well, by adding a hook behind the hook, like you see here, a trailer hook, you can oftentimes, when the bass grabs the bait, he'll strike short, and you can get him. And that's exactly what I did with this nice bass. A trailer hook is a great way to start catching more of those short striking fish this season. Make sure you give them a try. Hey, that's a nice fish.
Bass, more than any other fish, love to live in and around heavy cover. And boy, it's hard enough trying to get into a spot to catch them, let alone trying to get a bait in there. And it's worse yet trying to figure out how you're going to get the fish back out. Here's a few helpful tips to help you catch that hog largemouth.
If there was just one secret tip that I would give that would guarantee you bigger bass this season, it would have to be fishing one of my #1 fishing hotspots. Boat docks. That's right, boat docks. Boat docks offer the perfect place for bass to live and hang around because they offer food, security, and comfort. All the things Mr. Bass will need. Well, being able to fish boat docks properly means you have to make sure your baits are next to the dock at all times. Well, rather than casting at the dock, it's always best off to cast out and make sure that your lures are running along the length of the dock post. By doing this, you're keeping your baits in front of Mr. Bass, which obviously means that you're going to catch more bass. Boat docks, a dynamite spot to catch more bass for you this season. Good boat control is critical to all aspects of fishing, and especially bass fishing. Because if you can control your boat on the edges of drop-offs, you'll be catching a lot more fish. Because bass love to school on the edges of those drops. Now, say you're fishing a clear water lake. You may many times be able to see the drop-off where it goes from light to dark. You can visually see that. But what happens on a dirty water lake? Bass will still school on those drop-offs, but what you want to use then are your underwater eyes. The sonar units, or depth finders. These units here will draw a nice picture of telling you exactly where the bottom is. And by positioning your boat along the edge of the break so you can cast parallel to it, very critical, you have to cast parallel, you'll be catching more fish. So use sonar units to start catching more fish this year. If you're looking for a sneaky way to sneak up on a bunch of bass, this is a great way to go about it. Bass love to hang around in trees like this because they're homebodies. They feel very secure here. Well, by using a real long, powerful rod, 20-pound test line, and a big fluffy jig that drops down into the tree limbs, I can position the boat nice and close to the tree without spooking it. And I'll just flip it in there. And there we go. Whoa, there he is. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Oh, alley-oop. Oh, yeah. Boy, catching bass like this at point-blank range is loads of fun. You got to make sure you give it a try. Some flipping. It's no big secret that bass love to hang around weed beds. There's a lot of fish working in this reed bank right now. But it doesn't make a difference what kind of weeds you're fishing. The key is learning how to fish the weeds properly. You have to understand that the bass are cruising along the outside edges of these weeds. And unless you can keep your baits really close to the edge, you won't be catching any fish at all. So you really have only two ways to present your bait to those bass. You can either cast your baits at the weeds and let the bait flutter down, or you can position the boat so that you can cast parallel to the weeds. In this way here, the bait's in front of the bass for a longer period of time. In other words, if your lure is not within a foot or two of the weeds at all times, you're not going to be catching any fish. So remember, keep your baits close, and you'll start catching more bass this season.
The bass boat. The term bass boat is kind of confusing because any boat can be made into a bass boat, really, because a bass boat is really designed to be a comfortable fishing platform to cast for bass, because that's how most bass fishing is done, from casting platforms. Well, by putting an electric trolling motor in the bow of the boat, you're able to actually pull the boat through shallow water cover very easily. Now, another standard featured with a bass boat is a live well. A live well is really nothing more than a portable aquarium so that anglers, when fishing tournaments or catch and release, can hold their catch for a short period of time in this portable live well and let it go a little bit later. Basically, a bass boat is often a big, sprawling interior, so it's easy for anglers to walk around. A stable boat, a wide open boat, one with usually a bow casting platform, all make for an ideal boat to fish bass from. There are some accessories for bass boats, or any boat for that matter, that will make fishing easier, more fun, and help you put more bass in the boat.
If you're an angler who finds that lifting a motor up by hand is nothing but back-breaking work, I've got a great idea for you. Why don't you install an electric power tilt and trim unit to the back of your boat here? These very powerful electric motors can raise and lower your boat, so maneuvering your boat in shallow water can be made a snap by using a power tilt and trim unit. There we go. That's a nice eating size fish. You know, a lot of people like to keep fish and eat them, but one of the biggest problems is a lot of people run into fish that taste oily or smelly or just don't taste right. You know, the key to good tasting fish begins from the very moment they're taken, because a lot of people don't take care of the fish properly. The fish actually spoil and they take on a weedy, oily smell. So what I use is something very neat. It's called the live well. It's like a portable aquarium. Water is constantly being recirculated in here, and as you can see, the fish stay very live and fresh. And fresh fish is the key to good tasting fish when you want to keep a few for dinner. The electronic depth sounders sure has made life a lot simpler for anglers. Not only are you able to find out how deep the water is, but you can even spot a few fish once in a while. A small hockey puck-shaped device called a transducer is put in the water, and if it's installed properly, you'll be able to know how deep the water is when you're traveling at speeds of up to 70 miles an hour. These are the two transducers that I use for the depth sounders in my boat. It's very critical to remember that when the boat's traveling at high speeds, a smooth sheet of water is coming straight out the back of the boat. If you can adjust these transducers so that they're slightly below that water line at high speeds, the transducer surface will always be in contact with the water, and you'll be able to find the bottom at any speed you travel. A properly mounted transducer will definitely make finding a fishing hotspot a lot quicker this season. If you want to start catching more fish this season, why not try sneaking up on more of those fish? In other words, using one of the most revolutionary things to come along in a long time, electric trolling motors. Quiet, very efficient. This little motor here runs off of a 12-volt power supply. Now, this particular one is a foot control model, which means that I can power it, turn it on, turn it off, control the speeds with my foot. I can turn left, I can turn right. So my hands are free to do the fishing. That means that when I catch some of those big old bass, I can control the boat literally inches of water without a worry about getting tangled up in the weeds, increasing the chances of me catching that trophy fish of a lifetime. Electric trolling motors. Give them a try this season for your fishing.
As long as we're talking about boats, let's quickly cover some simple safety tips and a few make life easier suggestions.
Getting to your favorite fishing hotspot this season safely will mean a few trailering tips. Now, when you attach your trailer to your boat, make sure that when you lock it into position, you put a cotter pin in to lock it down to make sure that it doesn't accidentally pop up while you're stopping. And your tie-down chains. Now, your chains here should be crisscrossed when they're added to your trailer. Make sure you have at least 2 chains for your boat trailer. A safety chain is very critical to trailering safety in case your main winch rope breaks. And don't forget, before you head off to your favorite fishing hotspot, check your lights to make sure they're working properly. A rear tie-down strap is a good idea to securely hold the back of your boat. These are a few safety tips to protect you and your boat this season. The launching and loading of a boat is one of the biggest headaches for many anglers. With the proper kind of trailer, the loading and launching of any size boat can be made easy. Now, the trailers that I like to use are low-profile design. Not only are they more economical for trailering, but they also make it easier to launch and load the boat in shallow water. I like the use of independent rollers, which conform to the hull and roll easier, so loading and launching is a lot easier. All we have to do is undo the bow line, and away she goes. And of course, putting the boat back on the trailer is just as easy as it was taking it off. So as you can see, by putting the right trailer underneath your boat this year, you'll make life a lot easier and fishing a lot more fun.
Here's a jam-packed school on bass fishing with the best and the most usable tips and techniques that I know.
I know a lot of our viewers are avid bass fans, and on today's show, you get to come along with me on kind of a personalized seminar on topwater bass fishing. We're going to be fishing a lake close to my home in Minnesota, but the lake or body of water we're fishing really isn't as important as the principles of topwater fishing that we're going to be using today, because they'll apply to any lake or body of water you fish in the country. One of the most enjoyable things for me for topwater fishing is the fact that I'm actually hunting fish. I look along the shoreline here for areas that would hold bass. You see, anything, any kind of object, I say thing because it could be weeds, it could be docks, it could be an old broken down boat. Anything in or on the surface can possibly hold those bass. We're using stout rods with at least 17-pound test on my bait casting reels and 10-pound test on my spinning reels. The right equipment is a must if you hope to land a bass from heavy cover. The key here is the thicker the weeds or vegetation, the better it'll be for holding fish, especially if that vegetation is found in deeper water. So the key is deep water with lots of heavy junk weeds. That'll hold those bass all season long. So what I like to do now is to line up a series of shots so when I'm bringing my bait back across it, I can bring it right through the fish zone. So I'll cast right into the reeds and then bring it right out through the reeds. Here comes one. Here comes one. Here we go. Now watch how the fish rolls over the bait trying to inhale it. The trick is not to set the hook too soon, to make sure the fish is swimming away with the bait before you strike him. He's looking at it. Come on, bass. Tease him. Try to coax him to strike. That's the fun part of bass fishing, is trying to outwit him. Here he comes. Here he comes. He's right underneath the bait. Come on. You want to tease, like playing cat and mouse with him. Let him think about it a little bit. Nope, you're getting a little too close. If you can see under your bait, you're too close to the fish and he won't strike. You got it? Got it, right there, right there. Oh, wow, he came right out of there. Oh! He came right out of there. Well, I guess that footage puts a kibosh on that theory. But really, folks, if you can see the area around your bait and no fish are present, crank it back in and try another cast. Got him. Well, I don't know if I got him or he got me. He just licked it off the surface. He got me. That's the risk of fishing heavy cover. The bass are in there, but if they get down in those heavy weeds, forget it. Oh, good fish. Doggone, that was a good fish. I hit him, I tried to hold him, still wasn't enough. Sometimes a bass hits a bait so violently, I don't know who gets more excited, the bass or me. But you gotta hit him and you gotta hold him and you gotta reel like crazy, because if you give him even a second to get away, he's gonna get away for sure. There he is. Oh, missed him. Now see, notice how the delay in action. The fish struck, I paused, and I set. Now at that range, I didn't know if the fish had the bait or not. What I'm gonna do is get right back in there and draw him out. See, he's underneath that bank. Now I wanna coax him out. Now let's see if he'll come out a little bit farther where I can get a hold of him. Now he didn't feel anything last time, so there's a very good chance. Got him this time. Got to keep him up, though. You got to keep him up. There's a lot of heavy cover there. If you let him get down, you'll never see him again. Keep him up. Keep him up. Keep him up. Keep him up. A lot of people say horsing them in isn't much sport, but I tell you right now, bass like this can take everything you got. Just one look at this bassy-looking weed bed, man, it looks so good that you would think that you'd catch a bass on every cast. But anglers still must look for those unique ambush points, like a clump of weeds or an open pocket in an otherwise dense weed bed that might act as a feeding area for bass if you really want to be productive.
There he is. Ooh, good fish. Good fish. Oh, geez, hang on, reel. Big fish, big fish. That's 5-6 pound fish. Holy buckets, look at the size of this fish. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That top water, unbelievable. Look at the size of that bass. I got him. I got him. He's a good fish. He's a good fish. Come on, bass. Look at the size of that fish. Yeah. Now, we're talking about bass fishing. We're talking about great top water action. Look at the size of this bass. And that's a 5.5, 6 pound bass in anybody's book.
It's action like this that makes those cold winter nights bearable. I can hardly wait to get back on the water after seeing this scene.
That's a very nice, respectable fish anywhere you go in the country. That's amazing.
The explosive strike of a bass really keeps you on your toes. You never really know when they're going to attack. It can happen so quickly, it might catch you off guard.
It helps talk to him a little bit. You gotta kind of pretend that that bait's out there talking to him. You gotta tease him. You're looking at it. Come on, bass. Talk to him. Helps sometimes. Talk to him. I don't know if it helps catching the bass or helps me who's fishing for him. There he is. He hit it before the bait even moved. Oh, look at the size of that fish. Come on, baby. That's another 5 pound fish. Come on, bass. Come on, bass. Oh! Oh! Son of a gun. That was a good fish. I hit him for everything it was worth. I can't believe that fish got away. It was unbelievable. I hit him. Didn't you see me? I hit him. That's frustrating. You got those big bass like that, you hit them for everything you can get and they get away.
Yeah, it can be frustrating, but it's worth it.
You're out there working that bait and it's kind of you and the bass kind of thing. He's out there looking at you, you're looking at him, trying to get him to bite. Very exciting. Oh, he rolled over it. He missed it. Come on. Got him. Got him. Oh, he's coming right at the boat, right at the boat, right at the boat. Nice fish. Nice fish. Oh, yeah. Now that's a nice, fat little Minnesota fish. You know, when people talk about bass fishing, it doesn't get any better than this. Oh.
Well, I hope you've kind of gotten an idea of what topwater bass fishing is all about. You're going to have to look long and hard to find a more exciting and productive way to catch bass. I hope you give it a try this next season.
Well, there you have it, big mouth bassin. I do want to leave you folks with one last idea before we end the video. You see, a lot of times people start to think that to catch a bass, you have to have 10 tackle boxes, you have to have a $15,000 bass boat. Heck, when was the last time you saw a bass boat catch a bass? They don't. It's the guy in the boat that counts. In many cases, if you want to be a better bass fisherman, this is the best tool you've got right here. Because the more you can start thinking like a bass, the more bass you're going to catch. Remember that bass need food, security, and comfort. If you can start finding out where those bass are hanging out, I guarantee you'll start catching more fish. Give it a try next season. Best of luck.